Mr. Surfer, have you ever considered propane as an alternative energy source for that board of yours?
Norrin Radd the Silver Surfer is my favorite character of all time, and he's objectively the coolest as well. If you couldn't tell by just my naming conventions alone, I love the Silver Surfer in all his maudlin glory. Since I was a baby, basically I've been collecting surfer figures, with my first real grail item being the elusive superhero squad version of the character, which I still haven't tracked down 16 years later. After growing up and experiencing a vast deal of things, I find myself feeling only more connected to the Silver Surfer's forlorn voyages through the lonely cosmic highways. But unfortunately, we don't live in the Marvel Universe, and there's no Galactus for me to offer my heraldship to, so I guess I have to find my own purpose in this world. And for me, it's been collecting. Call it dragon sickness or whatever, but I've made it my life's goal to own every single Silver Surfer figure ever made, and a whole lot more too, I guess. But still, the Silver Surfer holds a special place in my heart, so today I'll be covering the history of every single figure of Norrin Radd the Silver Surfer, or anything else I deem interesting enough to mention too, I guess. For a bit of preamble, I guess, I should give some context. So, before I even started elementary school in 2011, I guess, the Marvel Universe line was going strong, and those 3 3/4 inch figures were perfect for my tiny little hands, with the Universe line and the Squad lines being my favorite ways to play with superhero toys. But there was always one character I could never find in either. Not for lack of trying, because my parents were good at one thing, and it was Christmas, and all I wanted that year was the Silver Surfer. But with the local comic shops not having any stock, my parents had to ask the extended family to look as well. And while I remember waking up on Christmas morning with an AT-AT, a Toy Biz thing, and Squad Line MODOK, there was still no Silver Surfer to be found. Or so I thought, because in a last-minute final grab, my grandpa had gotten me a large silver tarp. Not exactly the Sentinel of the Skyways I was after, but all those memories and letdowns my younger years experienced on the Silver Surfer makes collecting him all the more special. It makes every single figure I have of Norrin have that sense of rarity that makes finally attaining them all the more rewarding. Debuting in 1966, it would take 24 years for the Silver Surfer to make his way into action figure form. Being featured as part of the first series of Marvel superheroes figures by Toy Biz, right alongside classic iconic Marvel characters like the Punisher and Doctor Doom. This initial release is pretty basic, but a good first go. He's not really shiny, which is definitely a loss, but at least he comes with his board, which itself has a pullback action. The lack of luster on this Silver Surfer was quickly resolved with his second release in Series 3, alongside his friends in the Fantastic Four. This release uses the same mold, but now with a chrome finish that just blows the first out of the water. The Chrome Surfer was advertised as a cosmic defender, and his board has been made quite a bit bigger, and also has that retro chrome sheen to it. These two figures here are the closest to a real retro-style figure of Norrin that we ever got. You know, something that feels like it's from the same era as the Kenner Star Wars, or Marvel's own Secret Wars line, which is a real shame Surfer missed out on. But I guess Iceman can be fudged in as an adequate body double. The next version of the Surfer we'd get from Toy Biz was a part of the 1994 Fantastic Four animated line, being a part of the line's debut wave alongside fellow herald Terex the Tamer. Yet again, Toy Biz went all out with the chroming here, but now they left some white matte paint for his eyes to show through. This figure also featured some brand new points of articulation, with new joints at the elbows and ankles, for more posability. Depending on your preference here, the board might actually be a bit of a downgrade, as it now lacks the pullback motor and has 2 large holes in the center to create an attachment point for a clip. The clip also allows you to attach them to various objects around the house, which is a nice thought and great for display, but I much prefer how Toy Biz would later handle this, with a simple mounting slot on the bottoms of figures like Ghost Rider. This particular Silver Surfer was also included in a number of box sets and 2-packs that Toy Biz would later put out, and was also featured in Series 2 of the Toy Biz Marvel Universe line, which featured an amazing card back full of classic iconic 90s Marvel renders. Additionally, Toy Biz released a CD-ROM that came with an exclusive variant of the same figure, which had a slightly different color scheme. The CD was pretty basic, being just some digital comics and trivia that also featured some clips from the show and of Stan Lee. Pretty weird release all in all. But that's still not the end of this mold, as despite originally being released as a 5-inch figure, Toy Biz would blow it up all the way to 10 inches and release him as a deluxe version. This deluxe version was reused to be included in the 2-pack with Doctor Doom. Around this time in the 90s, Toy Biz was experimenting with a ton of different products, and one of them was die-cast figures in the 2.5-inch scale. And Surfer was included as part of the Fantastic Four subline. This little metal fig is great and all, but for some reason they didn't include a surfboard, so no matter what, this figure is always going to feel incomplete. And it's made all the more ridiculous because for whatever reason they decided to give Spidey an accessory, being a stupid little web shield. So why not do it for a character whose accessories actually matter? Despite the missing board though, it's still an okay sculpt for the size and material. But it's just not really the Surfer, is it? Anyways, Toy Biz would re-release this guy in a number of packages and multi-packs throughout the 90s, just like a lot of their stuff. Sticking with die-cast collectibles for a moment, in 1997, Warner Studios would put out a line of statues called Comic Book Champions, notably featuring characters from both Marvel and DC. The Surfer they produced is a really cool piece, and it's in a nice pose, although I'm not sure why they'd choose this cover over something much more iconic, but I guess it was just for marketing and all, given the release year. Another odd little one-off figure was the Just Toys Twistables incarnation of the Surfer. Coming on a card back straight out of a Kirby drawing, this guy is seeped in so much style and nostalgia that I just have to have it. I've already talked about my history with the bendable figures in my Simpsons video, but I just love everything about this style, and it's what started me out collecting, so the fact that an official Silver Surfer exists in the same style is just amazing, and he doesn't go for too much either, staying around $40 to $60 sealed from what I can see. And unlike the metal fig, this one actually lives up to the name too by including his board. Although I don't see any ways to attach it, I'm just happy it's here at all. Here's where we get into the prime age of Silver Surfer action figures. As with the release of his very own cartoon, Toy Biz would start a dedicated Silver Surfer line, all of his own, but I'll only be covering the Norrin Radd specific characters today. Starting off with the newly updated standard Silver Surfer, he's now lacking the chrome sheen, but does feature all new ball joints, swivel wrists, and a waist cut. His head sculpt too has been improved, looking much more alien and stoic than before. His board likewise has been upgraded, no longer featuring those obnoxious holes, and the foot pads have also been reduced to make the board look much more accurate overall. The next series, called Space Racers, featured 2 new variants on a new buck that had some sculpted energy effects coming off the body. The first of these variants was a molten lava surfer who had a chrome bronze board and some bronze around the energy flames. The other was the solar-powered surfer, who has a gold board and much more present gold coloration to one half of his body, making for a pretty good figure, and a hella shiny one too. He's also got some spooky red eyes to make him stand out a little more. Both of these figures also had a little pullback motor base that came included, shaped like little Beholder-esque space aliens. Next up in the Cosmic Power Blasters wave, another 2 variants of Norrin were released. One was a pretty basic version of the Surfer, but with probably the best sculpt yet, although his board's been downgraded a little as it had to be scaled way up to fit a disc launching play feature. The board can also be attached to the included fire base, which gives it the pullback actions. The variant of this figure is probably my favorite in the entire line in terms of detailing. Labeled as the Star Surfer, this Norrin is colored entirely in a slightly chromatic blue paint, with white speckled on after to give him the appearance of a night sky. Board has also been given the same paint scheme and really completes this rather exceptional variant. The next wave, Alien Fighters, is totally my favorite, just for giving so many wacky little Marvel aliens that we'll never see in lines like Legends or the now defunct Slex. As for the Surfers, this wave followed our pattern of 2 new Surfer variants, although you can tell they were already running out of ideas, because these 2 are pretty much rehashes of styles we've already seen, like the new Solar Surfer, who's a combination of the previous Solar Flare and Lava versions, with Norrin's usual sheen being replaced by a chrome red and yellow, right down to the red eyes. I also really adore the face sculpt here, being basically the only angry or battle-ready head we've gotten. The included alien is a little draconic warrior, who's just stellar with all those amazing, almost neon colors, and 4 movable arms. He'd fit right at home amongst a horde of Skrulls, Brood, and Shi'ar. The other Alien Fighters variant was the Cosmic Silver Surfer, who had a play feature right out of the Kenner Star Wars, with a retractable power cosmic blast being able to extend from his right arm. The colors are again based on a starry sky, but this version still has some silver chrome acting as shading around the figure, and some cool yellow eyes as well. Unfortunately, the included sidekick isn't super great, even though its classic character Pip the Space Troll. Being the only ever figure of Pip, I really wanted to like it, but it's just way too different from his comic book designs to ever be used in any of my displays, so it's really a moot point. Rounding out the Silver Surfer animated line are 2 different Starship micro playsets, one being a Star Cruise and the other being called the Command Ship. They're quite small, but have some good details to them. They also both come with the same 2 figures, those being a Micro Thanos and a Micro Silver Surfer, this time thankfully coming with his board. Something that unfortunately can't be said for the 15-inch Talking Silver Surfer, who instead features 4 power cosmic phrases. Yippee! I guess the board would have been too big to include, but come on, they totally knew they should have. And you can tell because they put a fake board on the box behind him, but even then it's cut off by the lid or whatever. Definitely a big miss here. I mean, the big button on his chest is enough to ruin any display value, but at least this 30th anniversary deluxe 10-inch version makes up for it, with all the accessories included. I'm pretty sure this guy reuses the 5-inch figure, just scaled up. But that's okay, because the sculpt is really good for the era. The board though isn't the best, with the 2 big slots to hold his feet in place, but they did include a power cosmic effect that can clip onto the board, and also functions fully as a display stand, which is hella cool. The other power cosmic blast is meant to go around his wrist, and looks like some classic Kirby crackle, but obviously the best accessory is the Infinity Gauntlet, that can be put on his left hand. Just so awesome. And not to spoil anything, but that's how I have my Fallen Surfer Legends figure displayed now, using the new mini comic series Adam Warlock's Gauntlet. but they really gotta do a What If Infinity Gauntlet Silver Surfer Legends figure soon. I mean, they really should have just included the gauntlet with the new release of him, but whatever. One final note for the animated line is for their regular release of Galactus, part of the Alien Fighters wave. He's a fairly nice looking version of Gallon, if obviously undersized, but for today's focus I want to show this little accessory, the little ball of cosmic energy which holds a tiny little surfer inside. I love this, it's so hella cool. I'd love to have it to be pinched between the figures of my HasLab Galactus. But that's it for the 90s stuff. So moving on to the 2000s, the movie era. Before we get to the movie stuff or legends though, I'm going to take a brief respite in the sorta Lego ripoffs, sorta their own thing. I don't know, I never really liked these. But firstly, as part of the first series of Marvel Kubricks by Metacom, Silver Surfer was released. And he's certainly a Kubrick. Like I said, I'd call it a Lego minifigure ripoff if it weren't so weirdly unique. I guess I have the same feelings for the Minimates versions as well, where the first version of Minimates Silver Surfer was released as a Tower Records exclusive, and I'd just be repeating myself if I went any more in depth on him. They did release him in a number of different multi-packs, and they also did a variant of the Fallen Surfer for the Modern FF box set. Next, and more definitively a Lego ripoff, is the Mega Bloks Silver Surfer, who is a part of the Mega Bloks Marvel Blind Bag Series 3. I have a soft spot for Mega Bloks figures, so I actually really like to track this guy down. And I might even do a video on Mega Bloks Marvel, because it's a pretty interesting rabbit hole in of itself. Released in 2007, Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer was one of my favorite movies as a young kid, behind the first one in the Sesame Street Christmas special. Sadly, Hasbro made the dumb decision to do 5-inch scale figures instead of the regular 6-inch. So these figures are all basically out of scale with everything, but still there's a few good Silver Surfers in here. So starting off with the basic movie Silver Surfer, he was released in Series 1, and it's a good figure, if a little thin. He was also included in a 3-pack with Dr. Doom and Mr. Fantastic. Then in Series 2 we got the Cosmic Cruising Silver Surfer, which is the exact same figure except his board now has silver spikes around it. I guess it's meant to be cosmic energy cascading from across the board, but it just kind of looks like excess plastic, so it's a pretty easy figure for me to pass on. And finally for the movie line, a Target exclusive Cosmic Silver Surfer was released. This guy reuses the 12-inch Marvel Legends Icons mold, but has some new Starry Sky paint detailing all around the figure. He's a cool one and makes for a really big and imposing guy in the collection. Circling back to where I sorta started, I guess, the Marvel Superhero Squad line was a staple of my childhood. But the one character I could never quite find, or my parents could never quite find, was the Silver Surfer, even though he actually had quite a few different iterations in the line. He made his first appearance in Wave 3 in a pack with the Human Torch, and there are images online of a chromed out version of this figure, but I can't really find any more than the one. No in-package examples either, but there is another Silver Surfer from Wave 7 that came on the updated packaging and in a different pose, but he still came packed with Johnny Storm. This pose also got a pretty rare single pack release. In the later days of the line, when they were getting really weird and obscure with the characters, we got a few new versions of Norrin. Starting with the Silver Savage, who came packed with Planet Hulk. This pack was actually a semi-tie-in with the MCU Hulk movie. The other was a darker colored God Surfer with the Infinity Gauntlet and Cosmic Cube Sword. Since Superhero Squad was such a big sub-brand, I mean, don't forget, it got its own show, games, and everything else. Like this anthropomorphic car version of the Silver Surfer and his matching plane. I'm pretty sure these were souvenir type items in Malaysia based on the packaging, but they're just so odd and cool that I love them. I actually saw the Norrin Radd plane in a thrift store and I totally regret not getting it. So when am I ever going to find something so unique? I mean, not as unique, but just as interesting, is the Burger King Hero Squad version of Silver Surfer, who was released in 2007 to help promote the show. He came with his board, of course, but also a little purple stand with a black and white photo of Galactus on it. For what it's worth, Surfer was totally the best toy in that Burger King series, as it's the only one that's an actual Superhero Squad figure. Hulk's probably second best, but has an ugly keychain hanger on his back. Cap would be the worst since he's stuck on a big blue base, if it weren't for Iron Man, who's only represented by a sticker on some abstract Stark Tech shaped plastic. Fucking tongue twister. Despite Hasbro's attempts to renew the line, Superhero Squad had already fizzled out by the early 2010s. And Playschool would have to launch a new line with the same concept of baby toys of Star Wars and Marvel, all under the same larger toy line. They just couldn't capture that same charm that the Squaddies had. But still, the new Marvel Superhero Adventures line did last long enough to feature the Sentinel of the Skyways. And using the same practices of selling 2 figures at a time, this Silver Surfer was packed alongside Iron Man. And somehow they made the Silver Surfer even less shiny, using the laziest method of all, and choosing to make the figure out of entirely matte gray plastics. But other than that and my bias for the Squaddies, this is a good figure. For babies. Like I was in 2007, during the transition from Toy Biz to Hasbro, so I was mainly stuck with the 3 3/4 inch scale figures. But the Marvel Universe line was, and still is, by far the best Marvel line in the scale. and thankfully it was before Disney pulled an old Yeller on the FF and X-Men, so we still got a number of Norrins. They really gave Surfer priority too, being labeled as figure number 3 in the overall lineup, coming after Iron Man and Spider-Man, in that order. Times they are a-changin'. He also got a figure in Series 8, which is pretty simply a re-release, but it does have a new box, and I'm fairly certain they added a bit of pearlescent shimmer to him, which isn't as good as full chrome, but certainly a nice touch. They also did another variant in the comics 2-pack with Doctor Strange, and while there's certainly a distinction with this figure, I can't really say exactly what that is. Maybe a wash or some kind, I don't really know. A bigger difference came in the variant they featured in the Toys R Us exclusive 70th Anniversary 3-pack. Alongside a classic Daredevil and stealth suit Iron Man, the Surfer included here is pretty unique, as instead of a silver plastic, they use a white plastic, with some nice shading to give him a real pencil and paper feel. The final Marvel Universe Silver Surfer was packed in with the deluxe 20-inch tall Galactus, and while that Galactus had two versions, one classic and one based on the Dark Galactus from Ultimate Alliance, the Silver Surfers included with each are just the same ones that came included as a standard figure, but I'm still glad they include them. That's where the Marvel Universe line ends as far as Zen Law goes. But there's still 2 more figures in the 3 3/4 inch scale I want to go over, even though both are technically part of Marvel Legends. Starting with the Marvel Legends Showdown line from Toy Biz in 2005, which is a half action figure, half card game sort of deal. Basically, each figure came with a card and some things that would allow you to use the figures for a tabletop game. The line didn't last very long, but luckily Toy Biz managed to put out Silver Surfer before they went bankrupt. The figure is really good for the scale, with a ton of articulation, and even came with a flight stand for some great surfing poses. The sculpt is super reminiscent of the Series 5 Legends figure. That's no diss, because the sculpt is really good. The other remaining 3 3/4 inch figure was released by Hasbro in 2020, as part of their retro Kenner line that only lasted a few waves. I managed to get this guy cheap, and while the sculpt isn't anything special, and the articulation is purposely lacking, the card back is really nice. It has some great art of Norrin himself, and that's all that really matters, as I don't think many people open these. At least I don't. Before I get into the last topic of Marvel Legends Silver Surfers, we're going to make a brief pit stop in the land of Diamond Select, where we only ever got the one basic Silver Surfer, and while being too tall for the 6-inch scale, I think it may actually be okay depending on the person, since Norrin Radd is supposed to be 6'6" anyway. But even aside from that, the figure is just lacking heavily when it comes to articulation, which I guess is to be expected with selects, and so is the accessory selection, being the usual greatness from Diamond. Coming with a variety of energy effects and a large spiraling fountain of power cosmic that acts as a display stand for the figure. And to top it all off, we get a swappable Infinity Gauntlet hand for him as well. And while, like I said, this is the only Silver Surfer figure Diamond put out, they also did this statue, but that's not what I'm trying to segue into. No, I'd like to direct your attention to the display bases that came with the Diamond Select Marvel Zombies, Hulk, Cap, Spidey, and Sabretooth to be specific. Because like most Marvel Select figures, they all came with display bases. But unlike most, these bases all connected to create a larger battlefield diorama. And what's extra cool about it is that each zombie's base featured parts of the cannibalized corpse of Silver Surfer, making this its own weird sort of Build-A-Figure. It's just a shame that all those AliExpress sellers don't have any stock of these, because they're almost impossible to get a hold of on their own. And now onto what I think you've all been waiting for, it's time for me to cover all the Silver Surfer figures in the best, most classic iconic Marvel toy line of all time, Marvel Legends. Started by Toy Biz in 2002, it would take until Series 5 for Silver Surfer to enter the line, and he certainly made a good first impression, coming packed with to this day our only version of comic book Howard the Duck. And he's amazing, looking just the perfect amount like a bootleg Donald. But back to the man thing, Silver Surfer himself is amazing, with a great deal of blue shading to give him a hella comic booky look. Although of course being from 23 years ago, the body sculpt is a bit wonky and disproportionate. But I think it really suits this figure. With his more alien bug-eyed head, he looks straight out of the early Kirby panels. It really makes for a unique figure, compared to the more human, anatomically correct figures we get following him. His board too is pretty unique, using magnets instead of pegs to hold him in place. And yeah, it looks a bit weird with the duotone board, but it's just so cool that I have to give it bonus points. He also came with a little moon rock display stand that could support the surfer's weight in the air. This exact figure also has a pseudo variant in existence, but I don't know why anyone would ever choose it, with literally the only difference being the lack of Howard, which I can only imagine was for cost-saving reasons, as this variant was released towards the end of Toy Biz's run on Legends. Technically counted as a different figure is this version released by Hasbro in 2007, as a Walmart exclusive. It's again the same figure as Toy Biz's version, except he's now lacking the display stand and shading. The board's also not magnetic, which sucks, but I get it. What makes the Toy Biz reuse all the more strange is that the first Hasbro-produced Silver Surfer was released that same year, and it's maybe an upgrade? Well, the board definitely is, because they went all out and fully chromed his board, making this the best board in all of Legends for just that reason. But sadly, that treatment wasn't given to Norrin himself. as he has the standard silver plastic that just doesn't have the same luster as chrome, and sadly this board is the last we'll see of it. Using the previous as a base, the 2008 Silver Savage is by far the most unique variant in this scale, and was one of my all-time grails until I finally got it this summer. One of the factors adding to this figure's rarity is that it was part of a Target exclusive wave of figures, with the Build-A-Figure being Red Hulk, so he's not as common as some others from the same era. After that, we entered the dark times for Fantastic Four media, when Disney cast them aside and forbid licensors from making toys and merch to the characters. That was until 10 years later when they finally got the rights back, and with that, of course, in 2018, alongside Mr. Fantastic and The Thing, Silver Surfer would be included in the first wave of Walgreens exclusives. And this is our first modern figure, and it's an upgrade in basically all aspects other than the board. This release came with 2 yellow power cosmic effects, as well as 2 sets of hands, and the proportions as a whole are just much better, and the articulation is a whole lot more useful for posing. The next figure was also an exclusive, and the first one I found at retail. The Worthy Surfer was released as a GameStop exclusive in 2021. This figure is a great addition to the collection, with a new gunmetal gray coloration and Mjolnir. This is a solid figure, even if it's just a recolor of the previous. I just really wish he came with the gauntlet. Even if it's not exactly accurate to the specific story, that's just how I have mine displayed. The next Surfer was another exclusive, but this time was a whole lot more so, because he was only available to backers of the HasLab Galactus, being the first stretch goal bonus. This version is basically the same as the 2018 one, but it has a new head sculpt with I'd say a little more exaggerated proportions, and more solidly white eyes. Like I said about the 2018 one, this is pretty much the definitive Silver Surfer figure, with butterfly joints and all. Of course, with advances in tech, there's room for improvement though, but there's no real glaring flaws, so when the newest mini-comic series figure was revealed, I just wasn't excited. Still though, now that I've really compared it to the older ones, I can see some changes, particularly in the head, with it being more like the 2018 version, more human. And the board is more accurate and less toyetic in how the bottom looks, which I appreciate. Other than that, I guess this newest release has the shiniest silver, but comparing it to the old fully chromed figures, it's really no competition. And even after looking at everything they've released for him, I think that maybe the animated series version is still the best. You just can't beat that chrome shine. Future SpongeBob really knew what he was talking about.
Everything is chrome in the future.
Or I guess not, because for Hasbro and LEGO, the future certainly isn't chrome. But anyway, that's it. There's to my best attempts, a complete retrospective of action figures based on my favorite character of all time, the one and only lone wanderer of the cosmic highways, Norrin Radd, the Silver Surfer.
It may have taken me a really long time, but all those years I spent hunting for the Silver Surfer, from going to countless comic book stores with my dad to my grandpa inexplicably getting me a silver tarp for Christmas, it's made all the figures I do have all the more meaningful. And actually finding my first Surfer in store at a GameStop in 2021, probably the single most orgasmic experience of my life. Like the hunger that inevitably consumes Galactus, I don't see an end to my collecting. And in that, I guess I've found my purpose. So for the foreseeable future, I guess I'm always going to have a sheer love to the max for the Silver Surfer.
Well, y'all come back now, you hear? And, if you want propane and propane accessories, you give me a call.